Okay, in this video, we're going to be looking at laws of exponents versus simplifying rational exponents. And so as long as you can remember our laws of exponents and just basic rules of fractions, then this isn't as complicated as it usually seems to be. So let's go ahead and look at our initial laws of exponents. So these are our 5 basic laws, that when you multiply and have the same base, that you add the exponents. When you divide and have the same base, you subtract the exponents. So at this point, this should be kind of review. This is not an introductory to law of exponents, but we're looking at the rational component. So this is just a quick review. If you raise a power to a power, you multiply. And when you have at least 2 variables or so raised to a power, then each one of their exponents is multiplied to that. It's basically distributed to both of their exponents. And then the same thing here is that if I have a quotient, then my n is going to be distributed to both my numerator and my denominator and to both of those exponents. So make sure you pause the video, copy those down. They're a nice reference to have when we go into the actual simplifying of exponents component. So our first example is going to apply our first rule, which is that if I have 3 to the 1/5 times 3 to the 3/5, then we just say, okay, that means we're just going to add our exponents. And so I'm going to add my exponents. They happen to be fractions and apply basic fraction rules. Denominator is the same, add the numerator, boom, I have simplified, and I am done. And if I want to, I could rewrite it as a radical using your radical rules. But for right now, we're just going to keep them as rationals or basically a fraction. To apply the second rule, or at least another rule, should I say, number 5 rule, is that we're dividing. Well, if we're dividing, that means we subtract our exponents. And so you can say, okay, I should have 4, oops, and I rewrote this one wrong, apologies, fix that, 1/4, beautiful 4, 1/4 minus 1/2, and so you just make your 1/2 as the common denominator. Gives you a negative 1/4. And whenever you have a negative as an exponent, that just means you move it down into the denominator. And again, that's one of our other rules that you'd have to make sure you go back and revisit if you need to. But at this point, we should just be applying our rational laws of exponents. So for dividing, we subtract the exponents, and we just subtract the fractions as normal. Okay, so on 18, what we have here is we are multiplying, and so we are going to raise a power to a power, so we multiply those two together. So we multiply my 2/3 and my 3/4. So I multiply my numerator, multiply my denominator, like I would with any other fractions, and then if you notice I have 6 halves here, or excuse me, 6/12, which can be simplified down to 1/2. And so they do, just following traditional rules with fractions. And last but not least, looks a lot more complicated, but each of the steps are ones that we've already dealt with. If you have these powers raised to a power, then you're just going to distribute, and each of these are going to be multiplied by it. So negative 1/3 times 1/2, 2/5 times 1/2, multiply your numerators, denominators, and since this is a subtraction or negative, you put it in the denominator. All right, so the big thing is the laws of exponents stay the same, even though we're working with fractions, and just do those operations as you would with any other fractions.